Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready when you are. I believe you're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry about that. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is Monday, November 27th, 2023. Time is 5:05 p.m. and this is a work session tonight. And we have one item on the docket, and that is the city council priorities for calendar year 2024. And this is a continuation of a previous meeting we had, and then we'll go ahead and let you give us any updates you have before we get into it here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you mentioned, we've had quite a few meetings about capital improvement program, and we had a strategic planning work session, or was that, I think, August, where I included a memo from that work session of a mid-year review of where we were on our priorities at that point in time. So that is included in the packet on page 5. On page 4, you'll see the calendar year 2023 priorities. And if it helps us to screen share, let us know. We can do that. Otherwise, I'm reading off of the packet. So in the mid-year review, it talks about where we were as of August. There have been a few significant changes I would like to point out. First of all, priority type 1, large priority 1, improving city finances overall, including lost revenue and closing the general fund and small boat harbor deficit. We are in the middle of our FY23 audit currently. That should be in full, happening fully in December, and then we're hoping to have a report back by March. And we are anticipating that we potentially will be out of the deficit at that point in time and can start working towards capital planning and how to include a capital budget and our capital planning budget, capital project budget in with our regular budget to start working on some of these infrastructure needs, particularly the ones that we've been identifying in the CIP, and then other ones as recommended by council or staff. So hopefully that will come up during the budget process, as long as FY23 audit is where we think it will be. The second large priority, the secure 20% local match for Block Street and raw water transmission line appropriations. We did request to combine funding for the Block Street project and raw water transmission line just for the raw water transmission line in order to have a more complete project. There is a gap funding there of about $544,000. So that's still a pretty significant need that we're working on. We did send off an application for the Community Development Block Grant for that part of the funding last Tuesday. And that grant period closes December 1st. So once they're done reviewing it, we'll hear back from them. And then we'll continue searching for funds or trying to secure funds in other ways. And, Denali commissions a possibility, as well as something that the council talked about in the CIP meeting we just had work session about including that as a legislative priority as well. So it's not necessarily looking for both projects anymore, 20% match, but more trying to find funding for the portion of raw water transmission line that we do not have, or maybe even just overall, as it says below, pursue funding for major capital projects such as water and sewer, and broadband services, Seldovia Safe Roads program, and the dam reservoir. I think that could even be open for council's consideration of just overall water and sewer infrastructure projects funding and management category, but I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. On large priority 3, the future of Jackloff, I feel like we're starting to make progress on that. And Jackloff Bay Dock replacement project has been or will be awarded by the Port Infrastructure. Why am I blanking the word, sorry, Port Infrastructure Development Program. MARAD has been very active with the city and recipients of this award over the last week and a half. After I finish up the draft of the CIP tomorrow, I'm waiting on one more quote for the dam, and then it will be whole. The rest of the week and well, probably month is really going to be focused on trying to get some of these pre-award requirements out the door for Jack Loff. There's the environmental review, which is the NEPA, historical site study. There are a few other different things that we have to go through the process with them. But we've already participated in a work session with them. We have another one on Friday, and we're going to just keep plugging away on that, trying to get it out the door. And then with medium updates for those priorities, medium 1, improve broadband internet and communication capability in partnership with Seldovia Village Tribe. I do know that Seldovia Village Tribe is actively working on an application to secure funding for broadband for the community. There are some hiccups with the way our community is listed according to the FFC mapping. I had a great meeting with Cassidy with Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District last week. She's been working with SVT and with a potential telecom, and as well as with the state and federal programs. And it sounds like there's going to be some openings and opportunities over the next couple of months as the state rolls out their BEAD program. Every program has different qualifications. And while the community outside of the city limits is considered unserved, the community inside of Seldovia limits is underserved. So there may be different programs we do or do not qualify for. It looks like potentially the one that Seldovia Village Tribe for we may not qualify because it may just be unserved. So we're looking at possibilities of how to fill in the gaps. If the broadband gets to the community, then how do we get it within the city? I think that there's some good opportunity through that BEAD program. So if that's something that council still wants to pursue, potentially having that broadband category on there, it's listed in the capital improvement program as increased digital equity through access to broadband. Medium priority 2, land use management plan 2.0. The council did update the land use management plan through recommendations from the planning commission last month. I did not include develop housing option plans, wetlands and parks plans. That's something that's still kind of on hold as we work through different development opportunities. Randy Sweet, our planning commission chair, is actively pursuing different opportunities for housing, affordable housing in the community. So that is happening on the back burner. Secure a positive outcome for the future of the value added building. This has been listed as a priority 4 in the CIP per our last work session. And if I remember hearing correctly from council members, that there may be some desire to see some of our current existing infrastructure needs taken care of before continuing to pursue this funding. So something else to consider as well. Some of those other needs that we listed in the CIP are, the heavy equipment complex and archival storage, the inundation zone, the roof for the fuel and retail and distribution facility, improvements to city office, or energy improvements to city office. That's a number 4 as well. And the improvements to this multi-purpose building. So just some other infrastructure needs as well as the safe roads program and rolling stock needs. So definitely some needs there that may be of a higher priority depending on council's desire for what we pursue for the next year. And I should have started with that. This is just a snapshot of what you guys would like to focus, the staff to focus on time and budget wise. This really gives us a great guide for, okay, we know, we're constantly working on improving city finances. Jackloff's right at the top. Potentially pursuing funding for some of these water and sewer projects and managing them is right there. We want to continue working on broadband and AMHS. We know that that's a focus of the council, so we can dedicate and continue to dedicate resources towards that. For small, one, continued AMHS advocacy and Testamina replacement vessel. That's one that we've talked about time and time again, that if we don't continue to have a voice, whether it's positive or not, then Seldovia gets lost sight of. So something that we continue to focus on administrative wise, just so that we continue to receive service and stay at the forefront. And our former council member Sweat has offered to continue to attend those meetings and show up for the city and hear what's happening and report back and have discussions with me for the ones that I can attend, and still wants to be really active in the role if that's something that council is interested in. Small two is obtain an SVFD fire chief, provide more department and volunteer support. We do have a fire chief and a deputy chief now through our VPSO officers, as well as the city did provide, or the council did provide in their budget, some support for training and membership incentives. I met with the SVFD safety officer today, and we're talking about ways that we can offer just more administrative or office support through that position since the transition. And we're still involved in that process, but that is probably one that may be able to be checked off. There could be support that's offered other ways, but at this time they do have a fire chief and deputy fire chief. And then the last one, retaining and promoting Seldovia's small town charm. Provide support to encourage visitors to Seldovia through partnerships and local organizations. This again is something that's ongoing in the CIP. A collaboration category was included this year in the draft, and part of that collaboration is continuing to strengthen those partnerships and provide support overall. So I don't know how big or small you guys want that to be, or if there's a variation of that or something else you want to be focusing on, but that is something that we also are continuing to strengthen and work towards. And I'll leave it up to the council now.
All right, lots of information to digest. So Heidi, I guess then, yeah, last week we had gone down the list. Wasn't there was some additional estimates, I think, where was there a couple items? I don't have that in front of me. A couple items that you were going to look into some additional or some updated estimates on as well?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. So that's for the CIP. This is the council priorities, but they do lead directly into each other. And if you want, I can screen share. I have all the estimates except for the dam. I can pull that up for you. Well, that'll take a minute. But we have listed right now under the projects for the capital project legislative priority request, raw water transmission line replacement project. That's listed at $554,000. Block Street Sewer Main Replacement Project listed at $1,243,000. Seldovia Dam and Reservoir Improvements. The last year's estimate was $71,500. I have an estimate coming from an engineering firm, hopefully within the end of this week. Fuel retail and distribution facility roof improvements. I received an estimate for that of $136,557. Material for Seldovia Safe Roads projects, $88,000. And planning Seldovia Small Boat Harbor Improvements Project, $20,000. And that's for a preliminary engineering report.
Okay. Okay, I guess so for tonight, so the actual CIP, then that's gonna be on the agenda at the next council meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then for tonight, we're basically just gonna be talking about identifying our council priorities, similar to what we did the last couple of years with the large, medium, small, 1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
Again, just giving you guys a general idea of the direction we want to head. Okay, let's go ahead and just open it up to general conversation. You've got the one from last year, the one that Heidi just went through, and then we've got there's a blank. If you guys want to, we can write on that or do whatever, but we'll just open it up to whoever wants to go first, and we can just kind of start shooting ideas out there and see where we go.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah. Looking at our priorities that we have, I guess I'd like to go through council and staff and see which of these we can either take off of our priorities. Maybe they are already items that are in motion and are going to be worked with. And then I'm not sure, like the future of Jackaloff. Thank goodness we got that beautiful grant. Is that something that we should continue to have on here? Or is it now a working event that's going to be worked on through the city office at different stages? Is that something we should keep on this list, I guess, is a question for me. And then looking at what would come off of here, the Seldovia Village or the SV Seldovia Volunteer Fire Department. Is that something that we filled that? Do we need to take it off of here? I guess that's where I'm at. What does the council think we should take off here or not take off here? And then what other items have we come up with that maybe we'll take the slot? That's kind of where I'm at, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Yeah, Heidi, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say really, and I just popped up that resolution so that you could see, and I need to include the fuel retail numbers, but that was 135,000, just to give you an idea of where that is. And that'll be at the next meeting. But I would say even for Jackaloff, knowing that that is going to be an extremely heavy lift for staff next year, that there is value in keeping that on there, because we know that that's going to be a lot of focus. Whereas obtaining an SVFD fire chief and provide more department and volunteer support, not as much focus, because we've done a lot of the work on our end at this point in time, and we're just following through on some bits and pieces, providing support as we can. If that helps, land use management plan, that's something that we're working on in the background. And we would like to develop housing options plan, wetlands and parks plans in the future, if that's where council would like us to go. However, that may not be as pressing as looking for funding for energy improvements or roof repairs or road material. Just kind of evaluating each of these things and seeing where they're at versus where we want to go, and if that's really where you want staff's focus.
Yeah, where this gets a little jumbled up, and Vivian, I see what you're saying too, and this is where, now that we've kind of taken the time to get our CIP. So I think when we started this a few years ago, we didn't really have a good solid CIP document, or we had just started that. I forget which year the transition was, but now that we've got a much more robust CIP program and priorities and projects and broken down, that kind of is blending over into our priorities, right? They're kind of both, one's different. They're essentially different, but I get the understanding of us, giving the administration a list of our priorities. Whereas, like, for example, large priority type 1 priorities, are we at improving city finances? Obviously, if we don't improve that, nothing good happens in the city, right? If we're constantly in the red. And then when we get to 2, secure the 20% local match for Block Street. I mean, that's very specific versus generalizing, talking about our CI, you could pick a category of CIP, water and sewer, or I guess you could go to individual items. I'm just saying it's kind of a hybrid here. It's kind of tough to nail this down. So I'm open to whatever input we get from anyone else on council, how we want to do this. We can keep kind of what we've doing with the hybrid, or refocus, whatever your thoughts are.
Mayor Campbell.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm kind of in the same place that Vivian is with, she was talking about priority 3 jackaloff there, but even with our first priority of the finances, I mean, we're looking like maybe 6 months here, we might be out of trouble, huh? And I'm just wondering if, I don't know, these can't be condensed somehow, and some of the stuff that we haven't made as much progress on, maybe it could move up the ladder a little bit. I don't know. I'm kind of in the same boat you guys are.
Well, so John, expanding on yours, so we've got medium number 2 was a land use management plan, right? Develop housing options, etc. So if you went back up to large number 2, where we've got specifically, we talk about secure the 20% local match for Block Street, you could just simply substitute that with, continue to refine and improve and identify, projects that, meet the needs of Seldovia through our CIP program. You know what I mean? That the CIP program is its own separate deal that we're dealing with. And as long as now that we've got a good start, and I mean, we've got a very good guiding document, that should be one of our priorities as a whole. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of semantics here. This is our priorities for the administration. The administration knows what they have to do, but I think, having this, generally, this is what we're focused on, but we're not, we're not going to narrow it down to the exact nitty gritty.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying is I really believe that, the city staff really understands the importance of our improving our city finances. I don't think they need that. I don't think they need me to remind them of that every day. I think they know where we all stand there. Over the last 2 years, made a lot of progress, and I would expect we're going to continue to make progress.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, and we can open, anyone else just feel free to chime in here. I guess I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking more as a guiding of, of improving city finances. That to me would be,
It is.
I mean, that should be one of our priorities at all times, right? Going forward, capital improvements would be another big one. Land use management plan would be another one. And then once you get past large, I guess you could drill down a little bit more specific, but
Mr. Mayor,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Jen.
going to kind of disagree a little bit. I feel like once you say that, then we never have to change it ever, because then we always want to have more money and work on our infrastructure and buy more things. I agree that probably if we're really going to be out of the red.
It looks
Maybe.
that way. I mean, I can't say that for sure
Right.
without the audit, but it looks like it will either be out of the red as of FY23 or certainly by the end of FY24.
Okay. So, I mean, I understand why it seems wrong to take that away as the number one, because obviously that's very important and that affects everything else, but it's not as a dire need as it used to be. since we have made all the progress. I think that the biggest one on this one now, since Jackaloff is kind of, I don't want to say taken care of. I mean, I understand that is, yeah, I understand why that needs to stay there and not be taken off the list, but that the finding the funding gap is probably number one. Since we have that money already, we don't want to jeopardize that. I don't know how long we have to find that money to finish that project or what happens if we don't. I would say that would probably be number one for me. And then also, I feel like the roof repair on the fuel and lube is pretty big. But again, if you're just talking about capital improvements or whatever, your infrastructure, that can be lumped in anywhere, I guess. But if it was going to be specific, if we're going to get specific, I think that needs to be high up on there too, because that's just so unnecessary for us to have a building falling apart that somebody's paying to be in. So I don't know. I mean, and I agree that on the fire department is handled. We are supposed to be meeting again to talk about doing our bylaws and all this and officially making Jared the chief and Amy the deputy and all that good stuff. So I think there's also talks of finally doing incentives for the volunteers and all that stuff. So that's being handled elsewhere. I don't think that needs to be on there anymore at all. And the value added building is an interesting one as well, because obviously we want something to be done with it, but is it realistically gonna happen right now? Do you need to focus that much on it right now? I don't know. I mean, it would be nice, but there's so much happening already that needs to be taken care of that I guess it is a medium 3, so it doesn't hurt to leave it on there, but I think that's always going to be a thorn in our side. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if we're going to, I think there's value in having specifics, but I understand wanting to keep it broad because there's a lot of things that need to be done. Yeah.
I think you do make a good point though. And yeah, thinking about that, I mean, if we're going to have something that's, kind of guiding and meaningful, maybe it does make more sense to have it, drill in this. But I know I'm flip flopping here, but this is kind of tough to figure this out. But yeah, I mean, I'm open either way, on what makes sense for everyone. Ashley, go ahead. I see you got your hand up there.
Yeah. So after listening to everybody and kind of mulling that over, I think what we need to look at is the fact with our capital improvements projects that we've already prioritized those in that plan. So I think it just that part doesn't need to be specific. Anything that's in our capital improvement plan doesn't need to be specific in this. We just need to always have that as a high priority, unless we don't have many like years down the road, if for some reason we don't have big projects that we see as a high priority, but we always have high priorities on there right now. And then so those wouldn't need to be specific. We refer to the other document, or the staff does, to know what our priorities are there. When it comes to the finances, I agree that's something that just always needs to be on our priorities, but the priority of that can change. And so I think that needs to be another just way that we change how we do this, that we always are going to have the discussion every year. Okay, we need to have a financial priority. What is it right now? Right now, it's been getting out of our deficit. Once we're at the deficit, what is that next priority? Because without having a priority, that's where the public could look at us maybe not having our eyes on the ball with staff on how we're trying to manage our finances, which I think is really important, that we show that priority of what we're trying to do, whether it's, trying to cut in areas, if we're trying to reach, get more funds, if we're trying, just different things that we're trying to do money wise. And then from there, then anything that isn't covered by capital improvements or finances would be the others that we could go into detail and could end up being a large, a medium, or a small. Does that make sense? Just as it's like, I feel like we're in a new way of being able to look at this. Like we've been able to kind of lean it down a little bit. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It maybe isn't as long of a meeting every year either, because we've already hashed out a very large part of it right now, which is the capital improvements. And go.
Yeah, and I think based on what you're saying and what Jen's saying, I mean, the happy medium is like, and that's kind of what I was alluding to, is like, so if for now, because we're not out of the woods yet, I mean, if we maintain that our priority is city finances until we, once we're in the black, then we reevaluate what that looks like you're saying. Number two, obviously, is to everything that Jen talked about, raw water, closing that gap that's already been identified in our CIP plan. Maybe we make our CIP number 2 large priority, because that encompasses, I mean, like years worth of work into that one plan, right? And that document guides the administration based on our ranking of projects 1, 2, 3, 4, and that how they should be moving forward. And then obviously twice a month we have a meeting to where if there's hiccups, we can, reevaluate, or if we have to have an additional work session or something. Yeah. All right. Meg or Vivian, any thoughts, any additional based on what you're hearing here?
Yep, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love the conversation we're having right now. I am sold on keeping the finances on our priorities, is our guiding light that keeps us centered. I do believe that the conversation about securing the 20%, blah, 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 that second priority of large, that does need to be combined with our CIP. I think that would be a good broad statement. And it is difficult to remember, because we just really designed these concepts in the last few years, and we've done well with them. Keeping the city council priorities, what are they? And then with our CIP, they kind of cross over one another. But I would the large one, number 1, number 2, they can be in either order. But number 2, I think, needs to be fleshed out. And I like what Ashley and Jen were both saying, and you, Mayor. And then the other ones down below, that land use management, I think that could either be brought into the another category of it's combined with something, or I'm not really sure what to do with that. The broadband, it sounds like from our city manager's report that the work that Seldovia Village Tribe is doing may not work to the city's benefit. I'm not sure, we might have to go out on our own for that. And is that a priority? So I like the discussion we're having, and I think combining our big projects that we've got, our infrastructure projects, just so we all know that this is what's important to the council, and for the staff to know this is the direction we're working towards. Everything from the raw sewage or the raw water line through our need of equipment, etc. If that makes any sense. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
could I play devil's advocate just a little bit?
Sure.
So thank you guys for such a productive conversation. I like the suggestion of having the overall header of CIP. My only drawback from that is that the CIP is so extensive. And as Mayor Campbell pointed out at the last meeting, there's 16 or 17 number 1s. So I think it is helpful for staff to be able to say, even in these grant documents and funding as we pursue it, that, hey, this is in our CIP, but it is also a council priority. So while maybe keeping a CIP as a medium priority or a large priority overall, that we want to continue to working on those projects as we move forward. I do think it helps address, it helps if you're able to point out, because the broadband is part of that. So if the broadband stays a medium priority 1 or wherever it is that you want it to be, we can say that it's a priority and it's in the CIP. The funding for the water and infrastructure projects, it's not just Block Street. I received word from VSW today that the grant awards for the slough project, the slough sewer improvements, the sewer treatment facility, and the overall planning for the city, those grants are going to be in my inbox by the end of the week, and we'll be signing off on those. We'll go through the grant negotiation and then be signing off on those. So those are big, heavy lifts that staff are going to have on their hands. So if that's the number one is finding that gap funding, maybe that's where it's combined, is that overall those number one water and sewer projects that we have that are going to take big focus are, water and sewer infrastructure projects funding and management being the number 1 or 2 or 3, depending on where council likes that. Jackloff Bay dock replacement project, yes, the funding is there, but the management piece is still a priority. And when we have engineers come in, or when we're talking with grant facilitators, we can say, this is a number 1 priority for council, or this is a top priority for council. That's how we put top priority for council. And that really looks good. So when it's a guiding document for staff and budget and time, I should include that it's also a guiding document for how we converse with these different agencies and entities. And so I would suggest, if you're open to it, that yes, include the CIP overall somewhere in the document, because that's going to be an amazing resource as we move forward. But it doesn't hurt to also list those individual projects that you really want to see focus on, because we can't do 16 or 17 in a year. So what is it that, and yes, there's a priority and a capital legislative list, but not all of those are on there. If you look at the project list, the raw water transmission line, Black Street, Seldovia Dam, fuel retail, material for safe roads planning, it doesn't include broadband. It doesn't include the VSW projects. It doesn't include Jackloff anymore. Those are things that we're me throwing that out there. I would say it has value to have both those projects that are the main focuses for just the next year and the CIP.
So for example, then to do that, like if you had your council priority number 1, large, say, continue to focus on city finances, improving city finances. Number 2, ensure CIP plan goals and objectives are being met with the following priorities. 1, prioritize water and sewer funding gaps. I don't know what number 2 could either be. Jackloff, ensure completion of Jackloff, grant funding, or an implementation of Jackloff grant funding. And then whatever, whatever the third biggest one is, I forget there. But something like that, would that kind of satisfy, Heidi, what you're thinking, and then kind of like align with the discussion that we're having here?
Yes, that could work, Mr. Mayor. So then for number 3, so you would just, how many categories are you looking to have then?
Like under the CIP plan?
Well, in general, because while combining it does open up room for more opportunities to do things through the priorities. It also, I don't know, I have to think about that, how condensed that makes it, that we're working on those items.
Yeah, you got to remember though, too. Some of these things, it's a little bit of semantics here, because you want guidance from us, but at the same time, you've got a CIP that's, like I said, it's got 17 number 1s on it. We realistically know we can't even talk about twos if we can't get through the ones, right? So, but we know for 2024 task at hand, we know we're close if we can identify this water and sewer funding gaps and the current stuff that's in the pipeline. We know Jackaloff Dock is in the pipeline, so that has to be a priority for 2024 to make sure we see it all the way, home. And then there's a couple more that we're on the verge of. I think anything that's, we're close, we're on the verge of. For you guys, that's got to be a priority because that's what it's going to take to be able to get us to home base on some of these.
Mr. Mayor, if I'm
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
so maybe the CIP is more than one number, and like you said, the ones that are going Jackaloff and the sewer, maybe you have that as CIP in whatever, what I'm trying.
Yeah, no, maybe
In progress. There you go, and then you could have CIP whatever on deck. Whatever would be coming next, that makes sense that there's things that are happening already that are in the plan that need more time than what else is in the plan, because the plan is a lot. And we're not going to get to that stuff this year. Or not likely.
So we were going to talk about, say, three things, Heidi. In the CIP, we talked about water and sewer funding gaps as our first one. Jackaloff was either number 2 or number 3. What would be a third one then? I probably missed that in the discussion here.
Well, I think just overall water and sewer infrastructure needs because of the VSW projects, but then there's also the fuel, retail, and distribution facility roof improvements that Councilmember Swick mentioned. And I know that we've also talked about broadband, and that's coming up.
Right. So maybe those become like the third priority of CIP. I don't know the words to use, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's so kind of, I was envisioning this as, if the second priority, large priority, was ensure CIP plan goals and objectives are being met with the following, with the following focus, and then have either bullets or 1 through 5 or 6, just identifying those things that we just specifically talked about. I think that kind of takes care of both without going too deep here. Because again, we've got a whole CIP plan document that we could go off of.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
For that number 2, securing the 20, I think if, as our city manager said, we have grant money that's coming to us, but we need to find matching money. So to me, that's a big priority. So whatever grants we've got that we're gonna have to find out matching monies to continue on, that's a priority to put in there. And listing with bullets of what there is in the, on the coming up, I think that's a great avenue for us to know and the staff to know what direction we're going. So I would, the number 1 with the finances, number 2, that funding gap that we're talking about, and 3, the future of Jackaloff. And then coming down to the medium, we can start talking about those and moving that stuff around. But so far, I'm if everybody feels like the 1, 2, 3 of the large group, we can move on from there if everybody's in unison.
I have one more thing to say about the finances. I liked what Ashley was saying about how we could be specific on what our goals were. Since we aren't sure if we're closing the gap all the way, can leave that on there. And then what the next step is, what is it? Developing each fund needs however many months or whatever it is. We put that on there. That's our next goal.
For the reserves.
Yeah. And then money into permanent fund, paying back that permanent fund, getting that all squared away. Yeah, I would like, it'd be nice to have specifics like that. So the public can see that, yeah, we are working towards not just, yeah, obviously we want better finances, but this is what we are trying to get at this year.
Okay, I like that. That makes sense.
Would you, so if we were going to list that, so even bullet point that potentially improves city finances. So the first is to close the gap or close the deficit, right? So if we do close deficit, and then the next would be secure reserves or set up reserves, establish reserves,
Reserve schedule. Yeah.
reserve schedule. And then you mentioned permanent fund. And are you talking about just the 30,000 that's owed now, or in general, just?
Well, I think for this year, that'd be plenty. Maybe next year we work on figuring out putting more money into it.
Okay. And then how about, would council have appetite for also including on there as a future priority for and finances is including that capital project budget? So outside of an operating budget, having a capital improvement, capital project budget, where once the reserves are established, then if there is funds in excess of that, they move in. Or for instance, we have the port fee for the harbor that would go potentially, that is just for capital improvements. So that would be shown separately in the budget as a capital project budget with those funds, and then you can dedicate projects from those available funds. The 2%, I know we're not there yet for public works, but that is coming down the pipeline, and that is earmarked for public works. So potentially that could be committed to the capital project budget, and then from there be able to continue to pick on some of these projects and start seeing them come to fruition with funding availability. So I don't know if that's something you're interested in seeing listed as well as a future goal for improving finances. But I could see that being beneficial to the city.
Well, I would think, I'll just chime in on that one. I would think that would kind of be the holy grail, because every city only talks about deferred maintenance, right? It's deferred, deferred, deferred. Well, we're all going to be dead, but by the time the maintenance actually ever gets done. So if you can actually have funds available and you can develop a budget for capital improvements, that would be fantastic and something that we haven't been able to do.
I think you're close, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
absolutely. And the staff has already written up under future considerations on the documentation that we have in front of us. Under large priority number 1, the future considerations, this listed exactly what we were just talking about. So we're on the right page here, and the staff is doing a great job moving us in that direction.
Yeah, so let's add that one. I agree. Let's add that one then. Develop CIP budget in parentheses if funds available, something along those lines. Or when funds are available. Yeah, so that was so if number 1, we all agree on that, and that concept of the finances and then bullets, I'd like to do the same. I mean, if there's no objection, it would seem to make sense to number 2 to do the same thing for the CIP, and then have our bullets of the water, prioritize with the water and sewer grant funding gaps. That's the big one. The Jackaloff Bay grant finalization, and then whatever else you guys want to see on that. And again, these are for immediate short-term 2023 goals, and then we look at them again with our mid-year check in July or August and see where we're at. Some of them may be done, and Some of them probably need still more work. Everybody's thinking.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
if I may be so bold, it seems like that really encompasses the majority of priorities previously discussed, with the exception of the continued AMHS advocacy and retaining and promoting Seldovia's small town charm, or as put in the CIP. I mean, there is that collaboration piece, but maybe that needs to be called out separately. So you guys, I mean, this 3 large, 3 medium, and 3 small model doesn't have to stay this way. You could have, a 1, 2, 3, 4 model, or a 1, 2, 3 model, and have those bullets underneath as part of that number 1 priority, number 2 priority. Not to reinvent the wheel, but this model doesn't have to stay that way. If you guys don't want to fill in all the boxes and you really want to just focus on that 1 and 2, and then maybe any of the ones that don't necessarily fit under the CIP, that could be a way to move forward.
That's exactly what I was trying to get into words, Heidi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally good. I mean, that makes sense to me too. Yeah, anytime we can refine and improve and simplify that, I'm all about that for sure. So then looking lineal here, I mean, we've got large, medium, and small number 1s. Do we just move? So you've got your land use management plan that used to be down in, say medium number 2. Would that move? And I guess now originally we had large, medium, and small. Do we just do away with the words large, medium, or small? We got to make sure we're obviously thinking this through.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I kind of lost you there. Why would some things we could take out of the medium and small. We've got our large taken care of, but I guess I missed out what we were saying about deleting, getting rid of the medium, getting rid of the small, just because we got so much heavy in the large. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just changing around the format. The format, what Heidi was saying, it doesn't necessarily need to stay how we've got it, the large, medium, and small, and having to, fill out, 9 specific areas here if we don't want to do that. If we've got, if we're looking at changing some things the way we've done it with the finances and the CIP, and then a list of those bullets, the top 3 or 4 or 5 bullets underneath each one of those, then it would probably shorten this document up quite a bit.
Right.
I think how that would look then is that we have as you've been talking about the bullets, we have the CIP, and the bullets are kind of in order from what our high priority would be, number 1 through. And so right now, those should all be out of our top priorities on the CIP.
Yep.
Those are our top priorities. That's why I was trying to make sure we're not contradicting ourselves between documents and have things as top priorities in one and not in another. And so it's as general, the whole thing is a priority, but then we have those top ones. Financial, same thing. Now we have multiple things we're working towards, and then it can be other priorities, and that would be anything that doesn't fit into financial or capital. It's like Small.
Yeah. So maybe that makes sense. And that's where then you could bring in the things like, like the broadband or the retaining small town charm, et cetera, the AMHS, the ferry advocacy, things along those lines.
Mhm.
So top 5 council priorities sounds really great. Like if you're gonna do a resolution or request for funding, and you could say, even if it's one of the things listed under number 1 or number 2, and this is part of the council's top 5 priorities for 2024. And then just have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. It doesn't have to be that number. I think that's that's verbiage that people are used to hearing. And it seems like with some of this planning, the land use management plan, that's certainly not included in the CIP at this time. The advocacy, AMHS advocacy, some of that small town charm or chamber business report. We do have collaboration in there, but that's another one, or even just a general, we have a CIP, but general one, but we could have a general planning. There are planning documents included in CIP as some options, and just pick your top 4, 5, 6. And we could just list it out as that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the council's top 5 priorities for 2024.
So let me just follow you here. So if 1 was finances, 2 was CIP, 3 was other, could we do the same thing and then just have I think they should be numbered underneath there versus bullets, just to show that in order of precedent, right? Under other, probably the next thing that comes to my mind that's on this list is the AMHS advocacy, being at the top of the other priorities. I could be missing something there, but to me, that's another thing that we absolutely cannot lose, and is critical for the survival of our community. And then you could do, lump under that and pick a third one, the broadband under that. And
Well, broadband's under your CIP. So how about partnerships and collaborations? Because we know that that's been extremely beneficial with these projects and moving forward.
okay. So just, partnerships. Okay.
Strengthening partnerships and collaborations, something along that line.
Yeah, that's fine.
May I? Mr. Mayor, would that go in a category of its own for the future of Seldovia to go along with the future of Jackaloff? I mean, would that be in its own separate category with what you just mentioned?
No, I think it would just be under the other, which is like our third priority,
Sure.
right? For 2023.
Are we grouping and listing these in a large, medium, small order, or is it just going to be in a bulleted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, I think if you look at this, if I'm following this, Heidi, we have priorities just like we've got priority types 1, 2, and 3.
Sure.
Get rid of the large, medium, and small, and then we're just going down the list. On 1, we had finances with itemized bullets. 2
Yes.
was CIP plan, itemized bullets. 3 was other with itemized bullets.
Okay.
That's
And
where Jackaloff falls. Is that right?
What's that? Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Jackaloff is falling under that other.
Other category.
No, Jackaloff's under CIP under the number 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Others, the broadband, correct?
yep,
Yeah,
broadband.
others-
Nope, broadband would be under CIP as well. So I don't know. I think the word other may be throwing individuals off. Maybe instead of having it be an other, you have your 1, your 2, and then AMHS advocacy, and then strengthening partnerships and collaborations and lump are their own underneath. There's no reason why they can't be a 3, 4, 5. Unless you really want another category that just lumps everything together in a third spot, you can designate those out further if you want.
Well, you could call it other administrative. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. You can do 3, 4, 5, whatever you guys think. What do you think?
3, 4, 5's easy for me.
I think listing them in numbers of rate of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if that's what we've got, I think that works for us.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, with the testimina and then with the partnership.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So 3 would be testimina or AMHS advocacy. And then we're saying 4, the partnership and collaboration.
Yes.
Okay. Is there and then maybe 3, 4, and then maybe our 5th one is the land use management plan. That seems pretty straightforward.
Good with that, Heidi?
That sounds great to me.
Okay.
Would that give you enough guidance?
Yes, thank you. If that sounds great to council, we can write that up and bring that back in a resolution at the next meeting.
Okay, what do you, any additional comments or thoughts before we go to the public? Okay, that was a pretty good discussion. Let's go to the public, see if we had anybody that was signed up online in advance, or if there's anyone in attendance that would like to comment.
Mr. Mayor, we have nobody signed up online in advance.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we have no public comments in the room.
okay. All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council then. So we've got, we basically changed the format. We've re-identified, just so we're clear. The first one is going to be city finances and bullets, closing the deficit, establishing a reserve schedule, fixing our permanent fund, the 30,000 for this year, and then develop our CIP budget if funds available. Our second priority will be ensure our CIP plan goals, objectives are being met with the first bullet, water and sewer grant funding gaps. Make sure those are our first priority. Ensure Jackaloff Bay grant is completed and all the way through construction. And then I don't know, we didn't have anything after that. Did we just have those 2, Heidi, or did we have a third one on there?
I believe we had broadband and the fuel and retail building improvements.
Okay.
And then do you want the funding for water and sewer infrastructure, that funding gap, and then a separate one for water and sewer overall infrastructure needs? Does that make sense? Because we do have those other projects that don't have a funding gap that are going to take energy, or just a one category water and sewer infrastructure needs, including funding gaps.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to have those on there, let's throw those on there down in just in order underneath that.
Okay.
Okay, and then the third one was going to be Alaska Marine Highway System advocacy continuation. Fourth will be our strengthening partnerships and collaboration. And then the 5th one would be our lump or land use management plan. That sound good to everyone?
Sounds great.
All right, no objections. All right. Okay, Heidi, you got everything you need then to get that wrapped up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then the plan would be to rewrite that and then bring it back, introduce it at the next meeting or a future meeting here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll have it on the December 11th agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's see, we did council priorities, we did comments to the audience. Anything remaining before we adjourn? Okay, nothing. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your discussion. Appreciate that. And we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, good night.